some hope to die.
By these 50 countries, differing so much in race and religion, in language and culture.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
Well, I know they're lying. They tricked me once, but they're not going to trick me twice. The time is now. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, your host. Glad to be with you as always for episode number 263 about Christian Zionism, Jews, and Ilhan Omar. Coming to you on this Thursday night, December 11th, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Good morning, Tanner.
Good morning.
Let's start with a prayer.
I dwell in the shadow of the Most High. Under His wings I'm safe tonight. Trouble may rise, the storm may roll, but His truth's a shield, it covers my soul. Oh, Lord, You are my refuge.
Yes, He's my refuge.
My fortress and my song.
He keeps me strong.
Through the fire, through the valley. 10,000 falling at my side. Still your hand will be my guide. Angels watch me day and night. Hold me steady till morning. And my song,
He keeps me strong.
Through the fire, through the valley, You're the strength I lean upon. I will not fear the arrow that flies by day, nor the terror that walks in the night. For the Lord is with me. He is my salvation, my everlasting light. Oh, Lord, You are my refuge.
Yes, He's my refuge.
My fortress and my song.
He keeps me strong.
Through the fire, through the valley, You're the strength I lean upon.
I hope you're all doing well. We're approaching Christmas. It's the holidays. Good morning, Tanner.
Good morning.
You got that Christmas vibe going this year, young man?
Yeah, I do. I got the Christmas tree already up.
It's I'm really excited. I'm really excited for all the snow, actually.
I'm glad to hear you got your Christmas vibe going.
Yeah.
I've had years where I've had it going, and I've had years where I wonder where it's gone. This is one of those years where I wonder where it's gone. Uh, I'm going to try to get into it. I've got some holiday events scheduled. I'm excited about that.
Mm.
But as Tanner knows, I'm very involved in producing here at Free People, and we've got these podcasts, and I'm involved in the politics here in Minnesota. And I see a lot of pressing things that are keeping me from being in the holiday mood. That doesn't mean I'm not in the prayerful mood. The more intense it gets for me, the more I walk by faith and not by sight, because I do believe in miracles and I do believe we need them. Here's a miracle. Could you please support Free People Radio? There's two ways to do it. You can go to tireget.com, TIREGET.com. It's everything you need in tires. We're going to give you the best price. You're going to get the best tires. You're going to get the best service. You're fully guaranteed. And we're going to mount them and balance them right by your home. Everybody needs tires. 25% of you need tires right now. Please go to tireget.com. And if you call in, I'll probably talk to you myself. And since it's time to buy presents for Christmas, look at this beautiful idea. It's an idea. We're just right. I was talking to one of my campaign co-workers, and she was getting down on Nick Fuentes. And she goes, man, how do you feel about Nick Fuentes? Because, she's looking for a reason to say Professor Penn might not be any good. And I said, well, he's got a lot of really interesting things to say, but some of the things he says are a little bit far right. No, here at Free People Radio, we're just right. We're just right. We're just right. What do we believe in? Enhancing the health and well-being of every American citizen. So go to the freepeopleradio.com upward slash store and please buy some of your Christmas gear from Free People Radio. We'll use the money to expand the programming. Let's get into it. We had an event last night here in CD3, where I live here in Minnesota. It's going to be the first of an ongoing series of monthly meetings. We're going to be doing this because CD3 needs organization. I know there's a political party here in Stan Hamilton who leads the executive committee of CD3. I invited him to participate. He didn't come. His people basically didn't come, although two people, notable members of that community, I want to thank Martino Nguyen for coming. He was very vocal. He's on the CD3 executive committee. Fantastic. Jonathan Anasted showed up. Jonathan called me. Jonathan's working on Adam Schwartz's campaign. And he came, I think, to do a little Oppo research. That's cool. Known Jonathan for a long time. Respect him. Don't agree with him. Jonathan, my job is to hold the principle and bring you to the principle. Having principles matter. It's not about just getting people elected. It's about getting people elected that have some principle. You remember I said that. Just because somebody served in the military does not mean they're people of principle. It means they served our country, and that does deserve respect. That doesn't necessarily translate over into being the kind of folks we need to change the politics that has created the crisis that we live in. We had that meeting last night. It was at the Wayzata Central Middle School here in CD3. The next one is coming up January 7th, which is the first Wednesday or the second Wednesday of January. I haven't looked at the calendar, excuse me. I'm doing this in association with a very important place for citizens to gather from throughout the country and throughout the world, because we get people from throughout the world gathering at Minnesota Speaks, started by Minnesota Lady and Lieutenant Aldo. Both were in attendance last night. Thank you for attending. We want to have a place to work in the analog, to augment the digital. That digital meeting every Thursday night, 7 p.m. on X, Spaces. Going to be competing with the Professor Penn podcast tonight, Tanner.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going to be? I really struggled with this because I really like to be in the live chat.
Yeah.
Particularly when we have such a potent podcast like we do tonight covering Christian Zionism and Jews and Israel and Somali and Ilhan Omar. I mean, this is going to be a rocking podcast. But I thought about it. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to the spaces because I can go watch the podcast and review what people comment downstream.
Yeah.
But we only have one shot. Well, actually, they record the spaces. But there's just something cool about being in a space with thousands of citizens. And I want to have 10,000 people in there. And how we're going to do that? Go to Minnesota Speaks tonight at 7 p.m. Bring 4 or 5 people. Go next week, the week after. Let's fill that thing. And then we're going to have this monthly meeting where the people that are participating in Minnesota can come in and we can meet each other. And Minnesota lady already reached out to me and said, could we get together an hour before the thing starts and have a social hour? And the answer is, yes, we can. I even know somebody who might buy the coffee. That'd be me. Wow. We will take donations.
We got a Costco membership here, guys. We'll get the coffee.
Listen to him. He's giving away the company secrets. All right, we're going to get right into this now. We're going to start out and we're going to talk about the issues of the day, which of course were covered last night. There was quite a few Somali. I don't know if they were citizens, but I'm going to assume they were citizens that showed up at this event to be, I don't want to call them protesters. Excuse me, I have to take a little coffee here. They weren't really protesters. They were there to participate in a community dialogue to react to number one. Please play number one.
Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
Well, that was the start of some, well, shall we say, fiery community dialogue. As I said, quite a few Somali Minnesotans showed up at this event, and after some introduction and some presentation, we got into it. It was heavy, and I would say there was some argument. And I want to talk about that. But first, I want to say Ilhan Omar immediately responded to President Trump calling her garbage by getting an editorial posted in the New York Times. And the headline of the editorial was, "Attacks on Somali Americans are a cruel distraction." Ilhan Omar's case, and this is the case if you watch liberal media, which I do, because that's called opposition research, that President Trump is not dealing with the affordability issue. Well, let me just say first about this meeting. I've been to a lot of forums. I've seen a lot of political conversations in open debate. If you really want to see something that is sincere and in depth and assumes that you as an American citizen, you're sentient and you're interested in learning, come to these meetings. Because this was the most vibrant and in-depth discussion of this issue I've ever seen in a public forum, and it was quite informative. Uh, and if we're going to solve the problems that we face as a country, we're going to have to get by, canned stump speeches given by people who are in it for the money, the power, the ego. That's not going to get us out of this mess. We had two candidates on that stage, Phil Parrish and Royce White, that led a very in-depth discussion of these issues around what's going on here in Minnesota with the Somali community. And Ilhan Omar's point was that the whole thing is a distraction because President Trump is failing on the affordability issue. And I heard the same thing from Morning Mika Wednesday, that that President Trump is just failing on this cost of living deal. And I went back and I said, Grok, give me the inflation numbers by quarter from 2021 through 2025. And guess what? When President Biden took over in 2021, the inflation rate was 2.6%. By 2022 Q1, it was 8.5%. Then it was 9.1, 8.2. Now the Fed pulled up on the stick and raised the interest rates, and it started coming down. And in the first quarter of 2025, when President Trump took over, it was 2.4%. And now in the third quarter, after the imposition of these very allegedly inflationary tariffs, it's 3.0%. And you go, wait a second. Representative Omar, how is the president feeling when the inflation rate is down from 9.1 under Biden to 3.0 under Trump, including these very important revenue-raising tariffs, in my opinion? Well, actually, I've already decided that the next community meeting, we're going to talk about the economy, because one of the things that we don't understand as American citizens is how this all works. And let me just say, there are certain inputs into the economy that are either inflationary or deflationary. Let me give you the first one. Our economy is not free. It's managed by a bunch of technocrats called the Federal Reserve, which those technocrats represent a private bank that finances the United States government. You want to talk about an intergalactic scam? We're talking about it right now. And if we're ever going to solve the inflation issue, we're going to get rid of the Fed and make them write off the chattel that they've put on my back. These people have control of the whole deal. And what the government does is it deficit spends and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then this private bank funds it and taxes us to pay the interest, which goes to private owners. This is called debt slavery. And people go, well, why is there inflation? Well, because they want it to inflate. The Fed target for inflation is 2.0. That's what they're looking for perfectly, 2.0. 2% a year, we're going to inflate, which means in a certain amount of time, we've doubled the price of everything by design. Did you know that was by design, Tanner?
Yeah, well, I learned it here. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
We even had an expert on about the Fed one time. Remember we had
that was a great. Oh, who was that? That was such a good episode.
We can bring that dude back. He'd love to come back. Anyhow, my point about this is there's the cost of money, which the Fed determines. And there's the cost of energy, which is policy. So what has President Trump done? He's deregulating the energy industry. It's getting cheaper. I mean, a barrel of oil might get down to $50 a barrel around Christmas, which is low, which means our gas prices are coming down, which means there's more money in our pocket. Our electricity bills are high because of Biden's energy policies, the Green New Scam, which Julia Coleman told me here in Minnesota, every Republican senator supports clean energy. Well, is it any surprise that our energy costs are through the roof when we're decarbonizing on a scam? So it takes time to heal things that are baked in at this depth, which is energy policy. That is something President Trump has accomplished. The cost of energy comes down, the cost of everything comes down. But what he can't control, because we got an independent bank funding the deficit of an ever-expanding government, that interest rate, that's what's breaking everybody. That's why the cost of everything is so high. The government keeps deficit spending, and the Fed keeps playing with the interest rates. We got to get off of this. Affordability. This is just politics. When President Trump says the affordability argument is a scam, he's not wrong. He's just not very articulate about it, unfortunately. And that's because we can't understand it as citizens. So that next meeting, we're going to talk about the economy in depth. Let's just talk about the tire business. When President Trump was president the first time, my interest expense running a company was X. Right now, it's 5 times X. I can't make money when the bank's taking all the cash. Nobody can. Of course, unless you're Amazon and you got government contracts. But for the rest of us, for the backbone, the nation of shopkeepers, they're choking us out, and they're doing it on purpose. So we have to have a very in-depth conversation about the economy. Ilhan Omar said that this attack on the Somali community was a distraction. No, it's not. President Trump actually has policies in place that will enhance our economic strength as individual citizens. Affordability is coming. But when you get 9% inflation and everything goes up, it doesn't come back down. It stays where it's. All you can do is slow the rate of inflation. The target's 2% a year.
Yeah.
So now everything's elevated. It's not coming back down unless we have something that is dreaded. It's called deflation. You want affordability, you vote for a balanced budget. Oh my God. We got the left saying that a deficit spend says about, I've actually had a leftist tell me that deficit spending is the measure of how the government cares about the people. Now, when we're dragging along a bunch of takers and we're givers and we're letting them take and we're not giving them options like there's jobs, like when you export all of our industry to China, when you do that, you think, oh no, shit happens. No, it doesn't. It was policy. These people knew exactly what they were doing. They offshored labor because organized labor was what Herman Kahn called sand in the gears. So you know what? Very simple. Let's just offshore the production. We don't have to worry about banking the bricks and sticks. We don't have to buy the machines. We don't have to worry about the people. We're going to leave that for the slaveholders over there in China to do it. And we're just going to take the products and market them and make the money on the marketing. That's just great. And that's why we got Walmart. And that's why we got Home Depot. That's why we got Costco. Those people that run and own those companies are just conduits for taking products made offshore and running them into our homes. And so there's no jobs. And then you train people, hey, there's no jobs. We're going to give you income. We're going to give you all kinds of programs. And the government keeps getting bigger, and the Fed keeps giving us money, and the interest payments get higher and higher. And right now, the interest payments on the debt exceed the defense budget. We're going broke, and President Trump is trying to change it. The first fundamental thing was get this tariff policy in place, and we're only with 3% inflation, and we've added 20% to the cost of everything coming in the country. Wow. That's because energy prices are coming down. Deregulation is making it easier to do business. And the Fed just lowered interest rates yesterday by 1/4 point, but they said that's the end of that. And why is that? Because the globalists control the Fed. They don't want America to be standing proud and tall in the saddle with you having a great life. That's not what they're doing. They're taking all of our money away on purpose. It's the bank. Ultimately, it's going to come down to this, and then we're going to get into tonight's subject. There's $9 or $10 trillion of debt that the Fed, what we call created, monetized. They went and created that $10 trillion out of thin air. If I did it, it'd be called counterfeiting. And they gave it to the government to fund all this deficit spending. We're paying interest on that $10 trillion. If we organize, like going to Minnesota Speaks, and come into these meetings and the grassroots citizens understand this scam, and we elect people that got some cojones, we can just tell the Fed, go bite a hog in the ass, write it off. We'll bankrupt the globalists if we do this. And that's the only way out of this situation. It's freedom or slavery. You choose it. It's up to you if you want to be involved or not. So we had this meeting and people were getting excited. And we were talking about citizenship. And the Somalis were very upset, and so was Martino. And it was a very spirited debate. And I think my takeaway came down to this. After much jostling, intellectual jostling, I think people, and the primary antagonist in the community, the Somali who was the primary antagonist, he actually agreed that if people are here illegally, they got to go. It's just that simple. If you're here illegally, if you lied to be in this country, you got to go. And why do I say that? Because I'm a citizen. I'm an American citizen. I have an equity stake in this country. And I want to build my country so that it creates well-being for my children. If we have people in the country that came illegally in this wave that Biden let in, number one, that has to be reversed. That was a political act. And we're going to talk about this relative to Israel downstream here tonight. This is a well-practiced political act to change the nature of a polity. Open the borders, let people immigrate. That's exactly what happened in Israel. We're going to talk about that very shortly. That was funded by the Rothschilds, the central bankers also. Billions went into resettling European Jews into Israel to change the nature of that political entity. Very successful. It used to be, I think, 85% Muslim. Israel. It was called Palestine then. Did you know that?
No.
We're going to play it and we're going to cover it very shortly. Hang in there. Anyhow, we came to a conclusion. I think it seemed to me we agreed that if people were in the country illegally, hey, you got to go. And it's not just Somalis that are in the country illegally. How many thousands of Chinese are in this country and lied to get their citizenship? Thousands. They need to go. How many Eastern Europeans are here illegally? Thousands. They need to go. It's not focused on Somalis. Now, President Trump focused it for a moment on Somalis. But overall, this is about rule of law. We, American citizens, we are the only country on this planet that is united not by nationality, like the French, the British, the Chinese. They have a common ethnicity. We're not, united by a religion. We don't have a common religion in this country. We're not tribal. We're not clannish. We are united by a set of philosophical ideas. America is next level. Next level. Every other country in the world was, like the Germans. The Germans. They call them the Germans because they're all Germans. We're not. We're Americans. We're not all the same. And guess what? How do we operationalize that set of soaring philosophical Republican ideas? They're not Democrat ideas. That's a foreign ideology. We are a republic. We are a republic, and those Republican ideas are operationalized through what is called rule of law. Rule of law. Justice for all. So when that's undermined by people illegally entering the country or lying on their immigration forms to get status, we've torn apart the fabric of what it is to be an American. And I'm going to tell you, just so you know, there are two crimes in this country for which there is no statute of limitations, because these are the two crimes that destroy our community. One is murder. You murder somebody 30 years ago and you get away with it for 30 years. And on the 31st year, you can get arrested. You can go to jail for the rest of your life, because murder is a crime that cannot be swept under the rug. over time. And that's the same thing with lying on your immigration form to become an American citizen. You lie on your immigration form, and I'm going to tell you right now, that crime has no statute of limitation. You did that, and it gets discovered downstream, you are subject to deportation. Period. Otherwise, my citizenship has no value. And I want to have an equity stake in this country and increase the well-being of citizens. Citizenship matters. It's the fundamental building block of a Republican form of governance. I'm not talking about the Republican Party. If you're new and you're listening for the first time, I don't mean a Republican Party form of governance. I mean the philosophy of republicanism. That number one, I'm the sovereign of my own existence. I'm my own king or queen. Number two, because I am a king or queen, I respect all the other kings or queens. I respect minority rights. That's baked into our rule of law. Number three, I must participate in civic life because I'm a Republican. How can I be a sovereign if I don't self-govern? By participating, by coming to Minnesota Speaks every Thursday night, 7 p.m., by coming to this monthly meeting, by joining your local party, by going to caucus, by going to the school board meetings, by going to the county commissioner meetings, by being involved, by demanding that your government is transparent and honest with you and responds to your sovereign demand. And number four, we believe as Republicans here in this country in the common good, the commonwealth. We're not communists. We set up a political environment, a political economy where all who wish to work and to thrive economically have an opportunity to do so. And that is sorely lacking in this country today. But we talked about this problem here in Minnesota of the fraud, and Phil Parrish was very eloquent talking about the fraud. He's been on the front lines of trying to expose that for 10 years. 10 years. And I'm going to just tell you, after spending some time doing some research, there are three major clans. See, in Somalia, in Somaliland, there's a tribal culture there, a tribal culture, a tribal consciousness that we as Americans living in a republic really can't get our minds around. You know who got their minds around that? The Jews. The Jews still have a tribal consciousness. The Jews have a loyalty to Israel and to the tribal consciousness of Judea. They have that too. It's a little bit hidden under PhDs, law degrees, and medical degrees, but it's still there. Tribal consciousness. That's not Republican. Under this form of rule of law, we are loyal to the United States of America. I am loyal to the United States of America. But in Somalia, there's three major clans. You have the Darod. They're in Puntland and Jubaland, parts of Somaliland. There's the Hawiya. That's in Mogadishu. That's Ilhan Omar's group. The Isak, dominant in Somaliland. That Darod, actually, Ilhan Omar's clan, she's from the Majartin subclan. That's the ruling clan. She's a ruler. Her father was a big stick back in Somalia. And there's a war there going on. And it looks like a religious war. And there are people that are in it for the religion. But there's $4 trillion of known oil reserves in Somalia. And when you got these clans, these tribes, because remember now, the lines on the map, the borders, they weren't drawn by the local people. We go back to the way back now. They didn't have these lines on these maps. Those were drawn by colonial invaders. The Italians, the British, the French. They redrew that region to create conflict. And of course, they armed both sides of the conflict that they created with modern weapons. So they took people that really didn't get along for thousands of years and killed each other at a low level with spears, arrows, hand-to-hand combat. And they armed them with the most modern military kit and set them loose on each other. It's good for business. It's a great business. Not only do you get the money selling the weapons, but you can rule a region with very little investment or resource because you put the clan leaders on the payroll and then have them kill each other. And guess where this region is? It's at the mouth of the Red Sea, which goes right to the Suez Canal. This is a big project, the Suez Canal. It's a big deal. We've had it so long here in our consciousness, we don't realize how important the Suez Canal was and is to the European colonial rulers of old and of current times. So that Somalia region is on fire with conflict. The whole Horn of Africa is in a big civil war. TireGet.com, where convenience meets the road. Why make buying tires complicated? With TireGet.com, it's simple. TireGet.com, one site, a few clicks, and the tires of your choice are shipped to an installer right by your house. And, people ran away from there because it was, you stay there, you get killed. And so we got a lot of Somalians here in Minnesota, maybe 100,000 people. And then there's another region there called Somaliland, and it has a lot of resources. And this is another tribe, the Isaaq, and these people are at war over, is there a country called Somaliland, which is something we don't really know very much about. Kind of like when the planes flew into the towers, Tanner. Most Americans didn't know that there was two branches of Muslim, the Islam religion. We have the Shia and the Sunni. People didn't know that. We had no idea of the depth and complexity and richness of this history. And we don't understand as American citizens this tribal consciousness or this tribal conflict. Well, we better, because I think it has a lot to do with what's happening here in Minnesota. But at just a cursory level, man, got a lot of fraud going on here. And people are saying that the money is going back to fund terrorist activity. Well, let's just talk about that in a minute. But before we get there, I would like to juxtapose a very informed debate last night, in depth, with real, I'm just going to say I was impressed. It's hard to impress me. Now I'm going to show you who we're electing and why we got problems in Minnesota. Please play number 2.
Now, I spoke with 3 Republican lawmakers to get their reaction to the ongoing ICE operation here in the Twin Cities and President Trump's remarks earlier this week that Somalis are, quote, garbage. He called Somalis garbage. Do you endorse those remarks, or are you willing to denounce them?
Okay, that is that's a dumb, stupid question. That is a stupid question. I can't even believe you asked me that question.
I don't have.
That is absolutely stupid. Did you just ask me that?
That's an elected representative here from the Republican Party of Minnesota, Mary Franson. Mary doesn't like me. I try to stay away from her. She tries to stay away from me. But I just can't let that one slide, because that's the question of the day. Do you support these comments or do you not? You're elected. That's not a stupid question. That's an important question. Do we call citizens garbage? How do we feel about that? That's something we all have to work through ourselves. To say it's stupid, hey, you know what? When you got this kind of intellectual power in your state governance, it's not hard to see why we're getting ripped off for billions of dollars. And let me take it a step further. Can you play this next clip with Mary Franson? Because she actually went on X and took credit for calling out this fraud 6 years ago. But watch her courage. There wasn't any, where she tried to bring up this fraud in a committee meeting. And then when she was challenged, she just scurried away like a scared little girl. And the fraud continued for another 6 years. Taking credit for this is an embarrassment as a legislator. No, if you know there's fraud and some Democrat tries to shut you down, you stand up and you say, I am here to defend the citizens of Minnesota. And if you can't do that, you really don't deserve to be there, because we're losing our freedom and we're losing our country. So, you have a chance to stand up now, Mary Franson. Stand up tomorrow. It's easy now. Donald Trump is cutting a rug. Now everybody's got a set of cojones. But where was everybody 6-10 years ago? I know one guy that was on it. Bill Parrish was on it with hobnailed boots. The rest of the folks really couldn't get the job done because guess what? Guess what? You know what? We have to be convivial. We have to govern. You know what? You governed us into a massive fraud. Let's play this next one.
The DHS, and when he brought forward some of these issues of fraud, he's a disgruntled employee. That's how the public was gaslighted. That's how Scott Stillman was gaslighted. He was a whistleblower, not protected. But however, in this data practice request, DHS officials back in 2014 were warned that public program dollars may be leaving the U.S. and getting in the hands of dangerous people. I have a memo that says it was possible that a portion of all the money, regardless of its source, that was sent or brought to some African, Middle Eastern, and Southwest Asian countries was being diverted to terrorist organizations. I have another email.
Representative Franson, I'm sorry, but is there a question? Because we have other members, and please ask your question. We don't have time for a speech now.
Well, there's not. You know what?
But please wrap it up.
I'm okay. Well, then we will go on to the mismanagement of DHS when the Office of Foreign Asset Control kicked back a payment to a child care center because it appeared that the owner of the child care center was associated with the Taliban, which is why the account was ordered frozen. But yet DHS, the Department of Human Services, considered mailing a check for the amount to the child care center, about approximately $24,000, even after all this, which was quite maddening.
And quite frankly, I am disgusted by some of the conversation about terrorism, Taliban, and all those things. Those have been debunked. Those are not true. The hate, the fear, the Islamophobia that exists needs to stop now and forever. We can no longer continue to have those types of conversation in this house.
So, it's as a citizen, I just have to say, as a constituent, a certain kind of politics in Minnesota nice. Okay, great. The Republican Party, a lot of people don't like me because, see, if I was elected, and they're going to say, well, you're not elected. You don't know what it is. Yes, I do know what it is. That's the moment 6 years ago where you make the wheels come off the wagon. You stop. You're there to protect the interests of your constituents. If you know there's fraud, you never get off of it. This is not a Republican or a Democrat thing. I'm not interested in making it a party thing. I'm making it a people thing. When you get elected, and if I get elected, I'm there for one reason, to protect the interests of my constituents. The fact that this has gotten like this is because it's been allowed to get like this. People fear, the people who are elected, fear constituents in their own districts who may accuse them of Islamophobia, racism, sexism, etc., and so on. So identity is used to thwart and to muffle the voices of these legislators, but of course, they allow themselves to be muffled. What we need is a whole new crew, or we need the existing legislators to actually quit this Minnesota nice thing and push this thing through so we fix our state. We got a $72 billion budget. Right now, and I've said this and I'm going to say it again, we've got all this focus on the Somali community, and this is important because it's foreign policy. And we're going to talk in a minute about where I think this money is going and how it's really fueling a war over resources. But there's so much fraud in the state, it's mind-blowing. We're still if the Somali fraud is $8 billion a year, we're still dealing with small Duke. Energy policy in this state, the decarbonization of Xcel Energy, creates tremendous economic damage to the citizens of this state. We've got a healthcare system that is so predatory. And why not? Oh my gosh, you could die. Tanner, we were talking about this the other day. You got to go to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
Got to go regular because, they got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they got everybody on the comeback, like drug dealers. Got to come back and come back and come back, and then the citizens have to pay for it. Is our well-being really being enhanced? Well, when we squeeze all the extra procedures out of the system so that the procedures that are left are just about well-being, whoa, that's a lot of money. Just to name two, energy policy and how our healthcare policy is being delivered. Those are two massive areas of waste, fraud, and abuse that dwarf what's going on with this community. But I'm going to say that this money that's getting drained out of the state, and it's being drained out by people that are involved with clans and tribes, and we know there's tremendous amounts of remittances going back to the homeland. What the heck is going on in the homeland? Well, let's listen to number 3.
House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism, a possible link. He said they're just now beginning to look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
I'm pretty confident at the moment because
Stop.
there are
Did she look confident just now when she answered that?
No.
No. I mean, she got griddled on that deal. Let's continue.
people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in that the money that they have stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out. And
Stop again.
Basically.
So if there is terror, if there is the funding of terrorism, it's not the fault of the people that are funding it. It's a fault of the FBI and the court system for not discovering it. But of course, those funding mechanisms are intentionally constructed to be hard to discover. Oh, this is rich stuff right here. I would say that this woman, our representative here in CD5 Minnesota, is on the bubble now. I would say that this is a tipping point for her career. Let's continue.
Charging them with these charges, and so I do know that for many years this sort of like alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism that accusation has always existed. There's never been here and there in those accusations.
House Republicans and
What is this? There's never been here or there in those accusations. What does that even mean? I'm not sure what that means. But there's a whistleblower from the airport that I was just reading in the paper the other day said that there was suitcases with millions of dollars going back there. So we're going to have, but see, now this stuff's going to get sorted out. Let's finish this little clip.
That was all.
That was it. Great. So that was just on Face the Nation this past weekend. Now, let's talk Turkey here when Ilhan Omar goes back to the home country. And this is going to be in her native tongue with a translation, which I cannot vouch for. I found it. It was given to me. If anybody speaks the native tongue and this translation is poor, you're welcome to get in touch with me because I didn't. I just couldn't vet it. I mean, I'm not sure how close the translation is. But let's take a whack at it and see what we got. We as Somalians, we love each other. There are areas of frictions that led us to kill each other, but in reality, we are an organized society of brothers and sisters. People of the same blood. People who know that they are Somalians first and Muslims second, who protect one another and come to each other's aid and the aid of other Muslims too. Several days ago, we heard that some of the people who call themselves Somalis, she's talking about the Somalilanders, who claim to be Somalis, have signed a memo of understanding with Ethiopia on access to the sea. Now she kind of makes fun of herself, and she says her Somali language is atrocious. And Somalians have personally called her and asked her to speak to the U.S. government to thwart this memo of understanding. They want to know what the U.S. answer is. And she says the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. What we want them to do and nothing else. Somalians must have confidence that there's Somalians here in the country that pay taxes. A country when one of your daughters, she's talking about herself, is in Congress to protect Somalia's interests. That its waters will not be stolen by Ethiopia or any other country. No one would dare to support anyone that would do this, knowing that she's there to protect the interests of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. Know that she's working in the Congress to protect their interests, and she knows about their plight, and she's concerned about Somalia as much as the Somalians live in there, and she's going to protect the Somalian interest. All the Somalians dispersed across the world are together. This goes on and on. She's really talking about Somalian nationalism, her love of country, and she will never allow anybody else to steal Somalian land.
reer Minnesota iyo Soomaalida meel kasta ku nool adeerkaya hadda mar dhow ka hadlaayay idinkaga hambalyeynaya sida aad iskugu wada duuban tihiin sida aad
There's a remarkable level of unity against Ethiopia and Somaliland. We're into this tribal consciousness thing. Somali is for Somalis only. That's in the translation, it's identified as a genocidal construct, that the Somaliland cannot be divided, that Ethiopia and Kenya have stolen land, and that they're going to liberate the occupied territory, and that Somalia cannot be further divided. Thank you for inviting me. She's honored, and goodbye. So I don't know how good that translation is, and I'm looking around the teleprompter trying to read it, so I didn't do a great job even reading the translation. But this is a strange thing for an elected American representative from CD5 here in Minnesota to be in Somalia talking about that she is representing the interests of Somalia in our government. But you know what?
I think the most damning part is when she said from the inside of the United States. Is that not like kind of tell on yourself that?
But we're going to condemn her for this, right? I mean, I do. But you know who else does this? The Jews. Tribal consciousness, same thing. People speak a little bit better English. They've been here a little bit longer. They're much more embedded into the culture. And so you know what I did? I asked Grok, could you list for me since 1948 all the Jewish elected officials to Congress who speak Hebrew fluently and all of the links to them speaking to Israeli audiences in Hebrew? And Grok popped them all out. I started clicking the links, and you know what I found? This video is no longer available. 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 You know why? Because they're a step ahead of me. They knew somebody like me was going to figure this out and say, oh, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean, if we're going to condemn Ilhan Omar for representing the interests of Somalia in our Congress, how can we do that and not condemn the Jewish people that do it?
Yeah.
But all those videos are wiped clean, so there's no evidence. The crime scene has been sanitized, so to speak. Metaphor. Well, let me just share that in this takedown of the billions of dollars, it's become clear to me that there's a war there between tribes. It appears to be a religious war, and it is probably a religious war for some people, particularly the young people that are fighting and dying. Because religion's a good way to get people to go get themselves killed in the name of Allah, in the name of Yahweh, in the name of Christ. Hey, we're good at that, right? Organizing armies is always enhanced by religion. Just the way it is. I don't think we would like that if we thought it through, and that's what we need to start doing. That's what this podcast is about. But when billions of dollars of remittances leave and go there, they actually could end up, and I don't have any evidence of it, and I think investigators could look for the evidence. It will be hard to track the cash, which of course is an argument for digital currency. You see how this stuff works? Let's have a problem and let's have a solution. Problem, solution, right? You know, this is a This is a sticky wicket because, oh, look at all this cash funding terrorism. Oh, Republicans, we have to support digital currency to protect ourselves from Islamic terrorism. You see, this is a very complicated problem that needs complicated conversation. And if we're not willing to have that, we're going to lose our freedom. But let me just say, I found a clip. It was put together by a very well-known journalist who's based in England. His name is Jamal Osman. There is some allegations that he is not a impartial journalist, and of course, probably no journalism is impartial. But let's get a view into al-Shabaab, because the allegation is that this money is going to fund al-Shabaab, and there's a lot of very interesting information. This is about a 13-minute clip. I want to run the whole thing. Let's learn a little bit about what's going on over in this region of the world.
diinkanagii waa lagu soo duulay waxaan wada ognahay dowlado badan oo Yurub oo Mareykan leh oo Ingiriis leh iyo kuwa Afrikaan ah oo Ugandays iyo Burundays iyo balaan la aqoonin leh intaba waxa loo keenay waxa weeyaan diintanada in la diriraan.
A graduation ceremony for around 200 al-Shabaab fighters, the latest recruits for the militants that rule over a third of Somalia. Their faces covered so they can operate anonymously. They are fighting to overthrow the internationally recognized government of Somalia.
Democracy is a religion for non-Muslims. A religion for non-Muslims. It is our duty to use all our powers to confront and reject it.
These soldiers will be sent on missions to carry out attacks against the Somali government, as well as African Union troops stationed here and in neighboring countries. They have undergone several months of intense training to become battle-ready. They might not want to reveal their identities, but they do want to show their force. Uniforms, guns, vehicles, all spoils of war, stolen from their enemies, and of course, the essential mark for sweet tea. Notoriously suspicious, they rarely give access to outsiders. I'm the first journalist allowed to film them in years.
Anyone
who's bringing democracy here, we're going to stab them in their throats.
In front of them is Mahat Karate, his nickname, a nod to his extensive martial arts training. He was once a Somali government intelligence officer who is now one of al-Shabaab's most senior leaders.
dad badan baa la dilaa oo al-Shabaab disha sidee baad u justify garayn kartaan dadka Soomaalida ah ee muslimka ah dilkooda idinkoo u dagaalamaya saad sheegaysa islaamnimo
inagu cadow baan ishaynaa cidda cadow baan ishayna waa isdilaynaa mar haddaan isdilayno kolba aalada la isku dilahay ayaa waxa ka dhalanaya in cid loogu talagalay ciidan loogu talagalin shabaab waxa ay ku midaysan yihiin oo go'aan u ah in cid kasta oo shareecadu ay dhigooda ka xarimtay inuu xaraam ka yahay gaal iyo muslimid ku yahay arrinka ma u diyaar garownay.
Al-Shabaab was formed in 2002 and came to prominence in 2006 when Ethiopia invaded Somalia. A few years later, they pledged allegiance to Al-Qaeda. The militants have carried out wave after wave of attacks over the years, targeting the African Union forces who are here to protect the Somali state. But civilians are often the victims. This explosion in 2017 killed over 500 people in Mogadishu. The US and Europe have spent billions of dollars to try to defeat them. President Biden recently announced that US soldiers would once again be stationed here. Western nations regard Al-Shabaab as a terrorist organization that's causing havoc and instability in the East Africa region. That's why they have been targeting their leaders with drone strikes, funding the African Union mission, and supporting the Somali government. But after 16 years of fighting to eliminate the militants, Al-Shabaab still remains strong. I have come to the group's heartland to find out why. This is the de facto capital of Al-Shabaab, the city of Jilib in southern Somalia. I'm being given a tour by the governor and one of the group's most senior leaders, Sheikh Mohammed Abu Abdullah. He takes me to a checkpoint where all vehicles coming into the region are searched. Each vehicle has to pay between $200 and $1,500 to pass through, depending on the size and the goods they are carrying. They collect millions of dollars of taxes a month to fund their military campaign and their efforts to build a state. There is also some more unusual contraband. Plastic bags are banned in Al-Shabaab territory. Their environmental policies might be the same, but the UK government considers them one of the most dangerous terrorist organizations in Africa. The governor himself has a bounty on his head and has survived multiple assassination attempts. As he shows me around, he argues the perception of Al-Shabaab is not accurate. He takes me to the main hospital where they have invested $2 million to build new departments.
qaybta emergency-ga oo qaybtan ah qaybta farmashiyaha oo dabaqa.
I have come across this billboard. You might not believe this message is from Al-Shabaab, but it reads, Talabixintaadu waa muhiim. Your opinion is important. Cabashadaadana waa la dhagaysanaya. Your complaints will be listened.
With Al-Shabaab's reputation, are people really brave enough to complain? The suggestion box is just a few hundred yards from where they carry out regular public executions under the governor's supervision. Next, Abu Abdullah takes me to a food distribution center. He tells me they are trying to establish a welfare state. I asked him if this was a strategy to win public support.
Dadka waxa aan siinayno taageero anagu ugama raadino ugumana raadino macnaha inayna amaanaan kaliya waa jirkanaga al-muslimu akhul muslim.
This region is the most fertile land in Somalia, but elsewhere in the country there is severe drought. Humanitarian agencies warn that millions are at risk of starvation.
hay-adahoo kale waxay dhahaan dadka masaakiinta inaan caawino waan jeclaan lahaa laakiin xarakadu nooma ogola. maxaad ugu diidaysaan inay dadka masaakiinta caawiyaan ee tabarta daran oo kale tusaale?
hadalladaas afka ayay ka yiraahdaan laakiin tusaalaha dhulka wadankan in badan bay joogeen wax athaaray uga tagaan malaha burbur iyo damaar iyo baabi'in iyo isku dir iyo waxa weeye tansiir iyo dhibaateen unbay dad dalka uga tageen.
raashinkan maxaa la idiin siyaad malaynaysa ama laaluush tahay xogaa isla
ma laaluush maaha laaluush ma aheen niya kashi ilaabka ka soo go'day iyo kalgacayl muslimnimo iyo masaakiin la taageerayo oo alxamdulillah dadkooda alxamdulillah muslimiin ay yihiin.
kuma dhahan miya haddaan raashinka ku siin wiilkaaga waa inaad mid carruurtaada noo keento.
wiilka hadduu alxamdulillah asagaa soo gala maxaa karta adiga asagaa muslimiinta alxamdulillah jecel.
It's hard to know whether people are only supporting the group in exchange for food. I wanted to find out what residents in Jilib who aren't reliant on handouts think. So I head into town on my own that evening. I stop at Abdurrahman's barber shop. He's originally from Hargeisa in northern Somalia, but moved here 6 years ago.
muqdisho aanu joogo ayay toos igu soo dhacday inaan halkan imaado ka dhex shaqaysto walaayadka markaan arkay kala dambeynta iyo amniga iyo wanaaga markaan arkay oo dadkooda siman yihiin oo ku xadgudbaysa aan jirin oo cid dhacaysa jirin oo cid tuugaanu jirin.
But there's another reason too. In Al-Shabaab areas, drugs are strictly forbidden. Abdurrahman was once an addict, but the restrictions have helped him kick his habit. There is little crime here in Jilib due to a heavy Al-Shabaab security presence and brutal punishments. Thieves have their hands and feet cut off. But they are not just here to prevent crime. Their role is also to implement strict Islamic rules.
dumarkana iyo ragga ay isdhex fadhiisanay sidaan iskaga baana waxa fiican dumarka inay gees u fadhiistaan raggana inay gees u fadhiistaan oo isgaareen
hadday isla fadhiistaan hoos iska galaan maxaa dhici markaa
waa munkar weyn markaas waxa ilaahay dambi laga galo
In the past, people who were caught would be punished, but they are now taking a softer approach as part of their strategy to win public support. Al-Shabaab's goal is to govern the whole of Somalia under strict Sharia law, and that means educating future generations to create a loyal following. Children wear what are considered to be Al-Shabaab symbols on their foreheads. The group have opened dozens of schools, teaching subjects like computer science, maths, and English alongside Al-Shabaab ideology.
You have to be able to describe peer-to-peer versus server-based networks.
Muhammad has 6 children. Al-Shabaab are often compared to the Taliban, but they encourage women like her to work and girls to go to school. They also don't force women to cover their faces, although some do.
The women, they work. Al-Shabaab, they urge us to work. They don't force you to stay at home, but they encourage us to come out and work, and they give us suitable conditions to work and learn also.
Back at the graduation ceremony, the new fighters are sharing a feast with Ahmed Karate, a popular man here. The US has placed a $5 million bounty on his head. He is seen as playing a key role in the planning and execution of attacks in Somalia and beyond. He's never given an interview, but while US drones fly around us, he sits down with me under the canopy of the trees.
Somali waa dad Muslim ah say u dhanyihiin idinkana waa dagaalantaan miidan xal kale si kale xalka u raadin karin idinkoo aan xabadan iyo dagaalkan iyo dilkan geysan
runtii waa su'aal muhiim ah weey xaqiiq waxa ah adduunkan aynu ku noolnahay cid maantay mabda'eedii iyo nidaamkeedii iyo maamulkeedii nabadgelyo ku keensta aslan ma jirto macnaha meesha ka socdana waxa weeyaan xaqiiq macna la fahmi karo meeshan waxa ka socda duulaan dadkii diintoodii lagu soo qaaday laakiin dad muslimiin isdilahaya meesha kama jira
islaanta miskiinta ee heshaha ku gadanaysa banaanka oo kale ta banaanka taxaaqaysa kuwa wadada iska socda ee aan siyaasad shaqaba ku lahayn maxay ku dhimanayaan
qofkaani marka qasad kuma dhimanin laakiin dagaal meel uu ka dhacay way adag tahay in la yiraahdo aaladii la isticmaalahay ayay dadkani ka badbaadi karaan way adag tahay
waxa democracy u diidantiin
way iska fuudaa democracy waxa weeye waa diin gaalo ah annaga mabda'eena iyo waxaan ku abtirsanaynaa noo diidahay annaga maadaama aan dad muslimiina muslim iyo dimuqraadiyad meel ma wada galaan dimuqraadiyad waxa weeyaan xukunkan iyaga iskale shacabka iskale annagana waxaan aaminsanahay in al-hukmu illa lillah
ma isleedihiin idinku sida Taliban baad Soomaaliya qabsanaysaan rajab idinku jirta ah inaad Soomaaliya qabsataan guud ahaanba
waxa aan higsanayna weeyaa inaan insha Allah ta'ala aan Soomaaliya inaan qabsano waan higsanayna insha Allah ta'ala
ma isku dayeysaan inaad wada hadal la gashaan dawladda
annagu sidaba nimankan dawlad kama aaminsanin umuumanna waxa weeyaan cid kasta oo shariicada Ilaahay noo diiday inaan la hadalno la hadli mayno cidii Ilaahay shariicadiisa noo banaysan la hadalna waa la hadli doonaa insha Allah waqtigeeda
These graduates will soon be sent into action. Al-Shabaab leaders know that the West is running out of patience with the Somali government. Funding for the African Union mission here has been cut year after year, and many of their soldiers have been killed. They also have their own issues to deal with at home and are scheduled to leave Somalia in 2024. Al-Shabaab are playing a waiting game.
Well, what did you think about that, Mr. Tanner?
Wild that that guy got that interview. That's what I just kept thinking. I just kept thinking, man, that's crazy. This guy's actually interviewing these people. But it really, it's perspective that I don't ever see or hear.
Well, I think it's interesting that the right wing of this country and Mr. Karate have the exact same idea. Islam and democracy are incompatible. That's what I hear all the time in the Republican Party. And now I hear it from the leader of al-Shabaab, or one of the primary leaders. So there's some congruence there. Think of the pressure and problems that creates for the Somali immigrants in this country. You know, they either assimilate or they're saying that they're incompatible. I mean, these are deep issues that require really deep thinking and deep conversation. And that's what we're going to do here at Free People Radio, and that's what we're going to do at Minnesota Speaks, and that's what we're going to do at these community meetings. But that's a view into where some of this money might be going. But what we've learned, what we know from research is there's a war between the people in Puntland, which has a border on another political entity called Somaliland. There's a war there. There is a lot of killing going on there. And to the extent that we can understand how we got here, we got to go back and look at the colonial period, which we're going to look at now in terms of Israel and the modern situation, because it's the same thing but a little different. Who turned all these people against each other? Well, they probably always were fighting, just not with this kind of weaponry and not with this kind of money at stake. This man was talking about it being a war on his religion, and he probably believes that. And I thought he was a very compelling figure. But what's happening is in this war, there's people getting killed wholesale, and American foreign policy is involved in it. Do you know that there's been over 100 airstrikes by our military into Somalia to kill these people just this year? We're deployed there. So you got to get out your map and take a look at why it's important to the U.S. government, to President Trump, for example, to be focused on this region. And that has to do with money, money, money. The resources that are in this region are in the trillions, waiting to be extracted. This is a fight over resources. And take a look at that Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, and the Suez Canal. Take a look at it. We got a lot of countries vying for control here. The UAE is in here. The Saudis are in there. The Qataris are in here. This is a very complex problem. We need to sort it out, but we also need to understand how serious this is. People are dying, and what an incredible burden this is for the taxpayers of Minnesota, that this money's getting robbed and possibly unproven. Could just be, people ripping us off. But when billions go missing, that kind of feels like foreign policy to me. Someone's foreign policy. Someone's. And let me just say, either it's the secret government of the United States foreign policy or it's some tribal policy, the outcome is the same. There's a war here that justifies the forever deployment of the American military into this region, and all the bombs and missiles and hardware that gets deployed, continuously getting refreshed. Remember, if you're in the military business, you can't get another order for bombs unless the inventory gets used up. And man, they're using up a lot of inventory here. And when I see killing, personally, I want to do everything that I can to alleviate that suffering. And as a friend of mine says, find some way to trade, some form of cooperation so that we can coexist. These people are in their own frame of mind. I'm not here to democratize them, myself personally. I think that they need to have Somalia for the Somalians. And if the Somalilanders and Somalians need to work it out, let them work it out. But let's remember that colonial intervention has scrambled this region for hundreds of years. And that problem continues to this day. And so for Ilhan Omar, speaking in her native tongue, representing the interests of her tribe and her clan, and we're going to demonize her for that. Let's just talk about Israel for just a little while. Let's play number 6.
15 years later, the cinema is taking its first steps. Cameramen employed by the Lumiere brothers filming at Jerusalem Station provide the first moving pictures taken in Palestine. From now on, the camera is a recording eye, and what it records is this: a society much like that of Cairo, Damascus, or Beirut, in an Arab city much like any other. By the end of the 19th century, Palestine has 500,000 inhabitants, of whom 30,000 live in Jerusalem. A veiled woman, a Sunni Muslim, one of the majority. An Orthodox Jew. He too turns away from the camera. Here we have an Armenian Pope. Each of the Christian denominations has its church here in the Holy City. The holy places of the three religions are scattered across a few hundred square meters. The Great Mosque is close to Christ's tomb. Further along, at the foot of the Wailing Wall, a Jew is reciting a prayer. He is wearing a Turkish tabush, and though he prays in Hebrew, his everyday language is Arabic. Jews form half the population of Jerusalem, but in the country as a whole, they make up less than 5% of the total. Christians account for 10% and Muslims 85%. All of them are subjects of the Sultan of Constantinople. There are no frontiers in the Ottoman Empire. There are administrative divisions in which, in this immense territory, Palestine occupies a mere 27,000 square kilometers, made up of 3 small districts in the south of the province of Damascus. The same empire in the 17th century. In the meantime, it has lost the Balkans, France and Italy have seized North Africa. England has moved into Egypt, Aden, and even Kuwait.
And let's play number 7, talking about the colonial intervention into this region.
When you think Palestine, you may think violence, land seizures, and a decades-long Israeli occupation. But what you might not know is that another country played a driving role in causing the region's conflict: Imperial Britain. From 1516 to at least 1917, Palestine was under the control of the Ottoman Empire, a religiously diverse land where Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived alongside one another at peace for the most part. Then in the early 1900s, a small number of European Jews were trying to drum up support for Zionism and the establishment of a Jewish homeland. Just 20 years before, in 1897, the movement led by Theodor Herzl was initiated at a conference in Switzerland. They decided that they would advocate for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, but the movement at the time didn't have much support. And at the time, only around 8% of the population of Palestine was Jewish. At the same time, Arab nationalism was on the rise and many Palestinians wanted an independent state. Imperial Britain knew of both the ambitions of Zionists and Palestinians and used the situation to bolster their own interests. In 1914, amid World War I, Britain went to war with the Ottoman Empire. And in 1915, Henry McMahon, Britain's representative in Cairo, approached Arab leaders with a proposal. Britain would agree to Arab independence if they helped fight against the Ottomans. Then in 1917, Britain's Foreign Secretary wrote a 1-paragraph letter to Walter Rothschild, a leading figure in the British Jewish community. It read, "His Majesty's government views with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object." This letter became known as the Balfour Declaration, and it was in stark contrast to a declaration of the British and French armies in 1918, which assured the people of Syria, Palestine, and Mesopotamia of autonomy. So what was going on? Britain had promised independence to the Arabs that lived in Palestine, but then also promised a homeland for Jews on land that was already inhabited. Was Britain just transferring land that did not belong to them to whoever they liked? When the Ottoman Empire collapsed in 1918, the League of Nations gave Britain a mandate or administrative control of Palestine in 1920. It was a dual mandate. On one hand, they were to act on behalf of Palestinians, But on the other hand, they were to act on behalf of the international community of Jews who wanted to establish a homeland. Britain then drew up arbitrary borders, transferring the eastern bank of the Jordan River to the Hashemites. It was under the British mandate that Jews from Europe began to immigrate to Palestine and buy up land. The Jewish population in Palestine grew tenfold, from 60,000 to more than 600,000 between 1918 and 1947. Many Palestinians saw the mass influx of Jews as a European colonial movement, so as one might expect, it led to conflict. In 1929, riots broke out at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. Both Palestinians and Jews lost lives. In 1936, after Jewish immigration increased even more riots broke out. This time, the British were heavy-handed and killed between 2,000 and 5,000 Palestinians. A Royal British Commission concluded that because Britain had allowed mass immigration, Palestine had two distinct societies that couldn't be reconciled. They recommended a partition of the land. The Arab Higher Committee rejected this, saying it was all their land. Britain then banned the Arab Higher Commission. They introduced the White Paper of 1939. It stated that Palestine should be a binational state inhabited by Jews and Palestinians, but that Jewish immigration would be limited for 5 years. But illegal immigration still went on, and violence continued to erupt. And when Britain couldn't handle the mess they had a part in creating, they handed the country back to the UN in 1948. The UN then decided to partition Palestine. The story gets a lot more complicated after this, but the British promising land which already belonged to Palestinians to other people has played a part in decades of conflict and bloodshed.
Well, there's a bunch of really interesting information there, isn't there?
Those damn British.
Well, it's interesting that migration was used. There was only, what did they say in the first piece? Jewish population in Palestine was 5% in 1900. And we know that the Rothschild family spent $1 billion in today's money to resettle Eastern European Jews into the Palestinian area, into the what they called the Holy Land, and it changed the politics of the region. And that wasn't an accident. That was a well-orchestrated, well-financed migration, as we've just suffered here in the United States of America under the Biden administration. I hear some people say 20 million people came in 4 years, 10 million, 15 million, whatever the number is, which we don't know. It's going to change the nature of this country, and it was done intentionally to change the nature of this country. And look what happened in that country. We had a 5% population of Jewish people that lived in harmony with their Arab neighbors. And in 50 years, the country had been completely changed and set up an ongoing and forever conflict in the region, which actually is related to the conflict in Somalia, in Somaliland. So the mass migration of that period was a predicate for the mass migration in our current time. Look at the havoc that migration as a weapon causes downstream. And we're suffering with this now. We, the people, are suffering with this. Let's just say that we organized, went to caucus, everyday citizens got involved in the political parties with one goal: for transparent and honest government. And we closed all the intentional loopholes that are there which allow us to be robbed. Because obviously when billions of dollars get robbed, it's just like the migration. It's not an accident. Do you know why you lock your door? Tanner, do you know why you lock your door at home?
Keep enemies out?
No, to keep honest people from stealing.
What?
A thief will just kick your door in.
Oh, well, I guess. But
Okay, so when you have a business system like a government, and it can be robbed for billions and billions of dollars, they didn't even put a lock on the door.
Yeah.
There's no lock on the door. We're always going to have fraudsters. And they're going to, like you got a gas card, you work for the state of Minnesota and you fill your own tank instead of the government tank. Yeah, that's just petty fraud. Hard to stop that. People suck.
Yeah.
But when billions go missing, we have a systemic and organized effort to allow this kind of thing to go on. At least that's my opinion. And that's why I got down on Mary Franson. And that's why I don't want to hear a bunch of blaming between the parties. When I listen to candidates blame each, no, this is an all-of-government problem. And what I want to hear the Democrat and Republican leaders all say together en masse, wow, We got a problem. Let's work together to fix it. Wouldn't that be cool? But obviously this group isn't going to do it, or at least most of them aren't. That's why wouldn't it be cool if all of us got involved in politics, went to caucus, and started to elect regular good people that just wanted the government to be by the people, for the people, of the people. And then guess what would happen? All these billions of dollars that are disappearing and going over to that region in remittances wouldn't be going over there. Here comes winter. In winter, good tires aren't a luxury, they're a necessity for safety. At TireGet.com, getting your winter tires is quick, easy, and priced right. With TireGet.com, you order online, install right by your house, and stay safe on the road this winter season. Guess what would happen? A war would be defunded. What happens when a war is defunded? It ends. You have to fund a war. If there's no money for the killing stops. You want to cut the killing off? Cut off the cash. It's very simple. So we have to be focused on our local politics. I'm showing an international picture right now. We're going to continue in this vein. But if we make our local politics about our local people and quit focusing on stuff that we can't solve, like over there, what can we solve? We can cut the cash off. We can stop the bleeding. We can focus on the well-being of Minnesota citizens. We can get focused on our neighborhoods, our educational system here. And once we do that, and if everybody does that, let the Somalian people do that for Somali. Let the Somalilanders do that for Somaliland. Let us all be concerned with our local action. And then we're going to have an upgrade in the well-being of all world citizens. But no, we're not to that point. We have a big movement, 30, 40, 50 million Christians in this country that are united in their support of Israel. And I was looking at Mark Levin's posts, and he put up an article from an Israeli newspaper criticizing Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson is, asking, why is there all this? And they're trying to paint Tucker out to be an anti-Semite and this, that, doesn't so. And I don't pay that much attention to it. Maybe he said some anti-Semitic things, and if he has, you can come to me and bring it to me. But I think what we're really dealing with here is, could we please, at $38 trillion in debt, be focused on our own country? Could we please heal our own children who are sick and unwell? Could we damp down on the chronic disease here? Could we compress morbidity and extend longevity by making our schools about enhancing the well-being of our children long-term instead of training them to be dweebs and cogs in a machine, which is policy? Teachers, yeah, you're participating in that, okay? Could we just learn how to be well, how to be tied in with each other to form a community of people that actually love one another? What happened to that? Well, I'll tell you what happened to it. It was deep-sixed by the progressive movement. And now we have this big group of people in this country, Protestant Christian Zionists, who are supporting Israel full throat. And here's Tucker Carlson standing up against it, and he's actually said it's a mind virus. I'm talking about Christian Zionism. Well, let's go back and remember that Christian Zionism popped up in Great Britain 50 years before there was Jewish Zionism. Why did these British pastors and Christians start touting this Zionism, which is the return of the Jewish people to its ancestral homeland? Well, they read the Bible, which can be read a lot of different ways, and they interpreted it in a certain fashion, which actually benefited the British colonial enterprise. The French had a claim to the Holy Land because of the Catholic roots in that Holy Land. The Russians had a claim because the Eastern Orthodox Church was there. But the British, the Protestant British that had broken off from the Catholic Church over differences, let's just say, we don't have time to get into it today, they really didn't have a claim to the Holy Land. And we were getting to that point in world history where they were still robbing and stealing, but we got to the point where you needed an excuse. Previous to that, they just rolled the gunboats in and killed everybody and nobody was looking for excuses. But as life evolved and people got more domesticated, to use a word that Tanner used recently, we had to have legal justification for why we were doing things. So guess what? These Christian Zionists working with the British government came up with a story. And when I say came up with the story, that's where I'm going to be sticking to, that the Jews needed to be back in the homeland because that would presage the return, the second coming of Christ. Okay, great. And it grew into a giant international movement. And what does it really do? It gets people focused not on their local community, not on their local church, but they're focused on bringing back Christ because that's going to solve all their problems. Great God's going to come from the sky and take away everything, make everybody feel high. It's something that really weakens local political engagement and puts people in a frame of mind that is otherworldly. And I'm not against the other world. I just say, well, what justifies this? What is the scripture that it stands on? And I'm going to tell you, being familiar with the scripture, I understand what they're reading there, but it can be read a lot of different ways. Let's play number 8, a prominent Christian Zionist, Mike Evans.
Hello, I'm Mike Evans, and I'm the founder of the Friends of Zion Heritage Center in Jerusalem and the Jerusalem Prayer Team with its 30 million followers, and I am a Christian Zionist. Tucker Carlson has come out against Christian Zionists. Here's what he says: I dislike them more than anybody. Now, that's amazing, anybody, because it's Christian heresy. And I'm offended as a Christian. He calls it a brain virus, Christian Zionism. Now, Zionism is the belief in the Jewish people's right to return to their homeland. From this book, a Christian Zionist should simply be defined as a Christian who supports the Jewish people's right to return to their homeland. The biblical foundation for Christian Zionism is found in God's covenant with Abraham. It was this covenant that God chose Abraham to birth a nation through which he would redeem the world. To accomplish this, he bequeathed them a land in which they could exist as a chosen nation. It's all in your Bible. Christian Zionism is confirmed through the Holy Scriptures. The major and minor prophets consistently confirmed this national calling on Israel, promised her full redemption to the land after a period of exile, and spoke of her spiritual renewal and redemption, bringing light to the world, which is the root of this replacement theology. Now, Tucker Carlson and I debated once before. By the way, Tucker, you lost that debate. And I challenge you to another debate, a debate on Christian Zionism, because you claim to be a Christian, but everything that we believe is based upon the Bible, based upon the promises of God, which we don't believe for 1 second have been nullified or canceled. This is the Bible land in Israel. God called the Jewish people back to this land. And we are not infected with a disease in our brain. We are led by the Spirit of God and the Word of the living God. And I want to say something to you that are listening to me right now. I want you to look at what Tucker Carlson has said. He's only one of dozens that are coming out right now that claim to be MAGA, who are coming out right now attacking this Bible, and claiming to be Bible followers. And I want you to speak up and not remain silent. And here's why. In Germany, there were 40 million professing Christians in the evangelical church. 40 million of them, birthed out of the Great Reformation. But guess what they did? They bought into an ideology similar to what Tucker Carlson is saying. They bought into it. And out of it, they supported the chancellor. They said God sent the chancellor. The trains run on time. and they put swastikas on their altar, and they supported the Nazi Party. And 6 million of my people died, 5 million adults and 1 million children. I was strangled and left for dead by a Jew-hater father when I tried to defend my Jewish mother. So I know all about anti-Semitism, and I know how this can be fueled through the words of people like Tucker Carlson. So I want you to do something right now. Below, you're going to see a place to get your name and information so you can stand up and speak up and not be silent against these who are attacking the state of Israel, the Jewish people, and the word of the living God. And then I want you to also check on the box, debate Mike Evans, Tucker Carlson. Debate him on this subject, because you claim to be a Christian, and you're saying that what he believes about Zionism is heresy. What is the word of God? We're just simply Bible believers. We believe the promise to Abraham. I will bless them that bless thee. And by the way, Tucker, we believe America has been blessed because of this. You may not know this, Tucker, but a gentleman by the name of Columbus, who was called Colon, he came out of Spain because of the persecution of Jews, and he wrote, I will discover a vast land that'll be the home of Christianity and a refuge for the Jews. America has been blessed because they blessed the Bible and God's plan for our nation and his plan for the nation of Israel. It's all the promises of God. And if you cancel them to the Jewish people, you cancel them to Christians, Tucker Carlson. So I want to encourage you to fill out this proclamation of support for the Jewish people and the Word of God, and challenge Tucker Carlson to debate me on this very subject. Thank you, and God bless you.
That was interesting with Mr. Mike Evans, who has got a Jewish mother, which means he was Jewish, and he believes in Christ, which means he and I have something in common. This script, all of the biblical references that he is standing on is in this script, which I've been reading my whole life, Genesis 11 through 15. And I've been thinking about it my whole life. And I want to say, in preface to my final comments tonight, I'm discovering this with you. I'm not so bold as to say I know the truth. I'm searching for truth. I do know that the movement of the Jewish people into Palestine at the time, that wasn't an accident. That was a financed mass migration intended to serve the purposes of the British Crown. The people that went there originally were not Jews. They were socialists. Now let's get into this just for a second. There's a tribal identity, Somalian, a tribal identity, Judean, Jewish, a tribal identity, a political polity. When Christ went into the temple and confronted the Sadducees and the Pharisees, the uniparty of the day, and flipped over their money-changing tables and demanded that people rediscover that they love the Lord their God with all their heart and all their soul and all their might, and to love their neighbor as they wish to be loved, when he demanded those two great commandments of a group of people that had the form of religion, but actually were practicing a tribal political economy, hey, you know what? That's a very interesting thing for us to contemplate. Because a tribal consciousness, as Ilhan Omar said, were Somalians first and Muslims second. Okay, well then, hey, what is our identity and how's our identities being used? I am a believer in God first. I was born as a Jew here in America, but I'm an American second. I don't really believe that Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite, because let me tell you how this works for me. I can feel it. I remember when Royce White and I first met, the reason I met him is a guy named Michael Brodsky called me up and said Royce White was an anti-Semite. Don't worry about him. He's getting into the political race, but don't worry about him. He's an anti-Semite. I said, anti-Semite? I've been seeing him on Bannon. I didn't feel any anti-Semitism in Royce, and I still don't. And yet they're still going to paint him, and some of these people paint me, as being anti-Semitic. For what? Because I want to focus on my local neighborhood. I want to focus on my community. I want to focus on making a better life for my children, a better life for Tanner and his child. I can't agree with a philosophy that what the Jews called, because there was, let me tell you, in the Jewish community, for years in the Talmud, which is much reviled now, there is something called the 3 oaths. And these oaths were about the return of the Jewish people to Israel, because we pray all the time next year in Jerusalem. The 3 oaths that Israel should not, quote, go up as a wall, meaning that mass immigration or rebellion against the nations they lived in was prohibited in the Talmud. Concomitantly, that nations should not oppress Israel too harshly, the Talmudic scholars knowing that there was anti-Semitism, and that 3, the Jewish people should not rebel against the governments of the nations they lived in. That was what it was religiously for the religious believers until the religion started to break down with the advent of socialism, and when the Rothschilds funded a communist socialist movement in Eastern Europe, which included the mass migration of these socialists to Israel. All of the original people that were there were socialists. They set up a socialist state, which functioned up until Benjamin Netanyahu started to turn it into a more market economy. For what? To fund the war. More money, more violence. So my family, very Orthodox, they could have gone to Israel. They knew what was going on. They could have had their trip paid for. But instead, they went all over the world to get to the United States legally. And they came here for republicanism, economic freedom, religious freedom. They wanted to be sovereigns of their own lives. They didn't want to live in a socialist, godless state. How do you square that circle? I believe in God, but I'm thrown in with the socialists. That doesn't work for me as a believer in God, as a Jewish believer in God. And it certainly makes me wonder about the Muslim people who are wearing headscarves and are still allegedly Muslim, but they're supporting the left. That doesn't work. Those people are godless. People that are God-fearing need to live God-fearing lives. Now, this Mike Evans, I don't know anything about him personally, and it does seem to me like he really believes in that book. And I know it's very comforting when I read that book to believe every line of it. That every line of it is the revealed word of God. And if I just followed everything in that book, I'd be great. Do we live in an information war? Do you believe everything you read in the New York Times, the Washington Post, or what you see on CNN? Do you have confidence in the information that you see on X or on Getter? Because if you have confidence in it, I'm going to tell you, I do not. I read a wide range of sources, and I try to involve myself with people who give me firsthand accounts. Like I've got some friends now that are Somalilanders that live in other countries that are communicating with me, teaching me about what's going on in the region. I didn't get that information here. I had to go outside my bubble to get that information. And boy, is it informative. And I'm still not sure it's right. Because how do I know? I'm searching for truth. So I say to you, do you know that the Bible is a constructed book? That the Catholic Church put it together over hundreds of years? What was in it, what was not in it? Are you aware of that, Tanner?
Yeah, the King James Version. What is the title of like the Bible with all the books? Is it the Apothecary?
I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I think I just butchered the pronunciation, but yeah, wasn't it the 1600s King James? He got a bunch of scholars together, and then they basically constructed the Bible that we have today.
Well, that was the King James Version, but I mean, the original formation of the books was like 300-400 this started in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And I'm going to just say, I can feel, and this is where feelings are so important, when the words of a prophet come off that page. Like I can feel it when Christ says, why don't you get the log out of your own eye first before you start criticizing the cinder in the eye of your neighbor? Oh, that's got import. I can feel it. I know it's right. Some of this stuff, and I know people are going to get mad at me, some of it, it's a little bit scary the way it gets read because it can be read a lot of different ways. I know Genesis 11 through 15. I probably read it the first time when I was 7 years old, and I read it in Hebrew. We have a political movement, Zionism, which was originally a socialist movement, which was used to destabilize a region to protect the Suez Canal and the new oil field that had been discovered in Arabia, to plunk the Jews down in the middle of a tribal stew pot and then arm everybody and put them to work killing each other for generations. I don't think Tucker Carlson is anti-Semitic. I think he wants us to fix our country. I, born here as an American Jew, my loyalty is to rule of law in America. I want America to work for Americans. My grandfathers came here for a reason. I could be living in Israel, and I got cousins that are living there, and God bless them. Let them sort out what they're doing. I don't want to see my country destroyed by the balkanization that's associated with everybody thinking that their idea about the Bible is correct. And on top of it, we got nuclear weapons, and so do a lot of other people. Don't you find it a little bit strange that we have the most advanced technology and we can kill everybody in an afternoon, but our politics is being driven by interpretations of a holy text that was put together by church thousands of years ago as if there was no information war then? If the devil exists, if you believe in God, you believe in the devil. We can't have one with the other, that without the other. That's the yin yang, right? If we believe there's an information war now, wouldn't there have been an information war in the year 300 when the only people that could read and write were priests? How easy would it have been to put in things at that time? Why is it that all these religions are predictively programming us for Armageddon? Is that what our goal is here? Is a bloodletting on a worldwide basis? Yeah, that's where they're all united. Islam, Christianity, Judaism. They all have the story of an Armageddon and the ushering in of a new age on the other side. Well, could we get to the new age on the other side without everybody dying? Because right now, everybody thinks they're right. Everybody is pointing out the cinder in everybody else's eyes instead of doing the internal work that Christ encouraged us to do, to put sin underfoot within our own lives so that we could love our neighbor as we wish to be loved. Yet these people are all too happy to fund a forever war, to continue in a tradition that goes back not to Jewish thought. I just told you what the Talmud said. There's no ingathering on a political basis. That's a religious deal. Now, of course, that was a minority view once the Jews started getting out of Europe because they were hated and they were being killed and they needed a place to go. America did open its arms to the Jews. Kind of. Not 100%. Still to this day, I know there's people that are going to hear me. They're going to say the Jews and the Somalis both need to go. Well, now we get down to the issue of American citizenship and what do we believe as American citizens? Do we steep ourselves in our founding documents? Do we steep ourselves in understanding how this deal is supposed to work? Do we sort out the problems in our country? Do we have a set of principles and stick to them? Or do we participate in worldwide empire that was set up by the British? We stumbled into it as the American people, not our leadership. Our leadership went on the payroll. But the people, we the people, had this beautiful paradise, as Mike Evans was identifying with Christopher Columbus. And it's been given over to internationalism and globalism and foreign adventurism and $1 trillion military budget. Well, we have 89% of the citizens with no equity in anything. But we're doing great. Got a $1 trillion military budget this year. And what justifies it? The Middle East, Islamophobia, defending the state of Israel, the Jews, because we have so many Christians that believe that the Jewish state presages the return of Christ. But I'm going to tell you what the Jews believe, because I don't think Christians know this. Mike Evans might not know it. Maybe he does and he wants to gloss over it. What the religious Jews believe is the Messiah comes back when we're ready for it. In other words, when we have God living in our hearts and we act in a godly fashion, the new age begins. Isn't that interesting? We have a concept in Judaism called tikkun olam, the repair of the world. You can't repair the world if you keep digging the hole deeper. If you keep digging the hole deeper by everybody killing each other all the time, by having a political economy based on violence and death, a culture of death, from abortion to nuclear weapons, don't expect things to come out very good. They're not going to come out good. We live with the omnipresence of death. That does not justify hurrying it along. That is forbidden in the Jewish religion. But the British Empire found a way to speed it up. They found a whole political ideology and funded it so that millions of Christians, instead of working in their local communities and going to vote, we're looking for a great God to come from the sky and take away everything and make us all feel high. 30 million Christians in this country do not vote, and our country's being run by the godless. Does this make any sense to you?
Yeah.
It does?
I at least I'm following. I feel like I'm following.
But does it make any sense that 30 million Christians would not vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand that question. That makes no sense. I don't understand that. And that is something that I learned through this last election, that Christians just don't vote. But I don't know. I guess it does make sense, though, because I get their thought process. If you're comfortable with God and you're just like, well, humans can just do whatever they want. I got God on my side. And when my time comes, I'm in heaven. So
if you're a Zionist, a Christian Zionist, and you love the Jewish people, love this. We are responsible to repair the world. That is what politics is all about. It's not about hating each other. It's not about being victorious. It's about repair. It's about redemption and reconciliation. Don't let these political forces tear our country apart and balkanize us into little groups that hate each other. Take a look at Somalia and Somaliland, or Israel and Palestine, or Ukraine and Russia, all over the world. There's people hating each other. They bleed red. They have children. They die. Why are we hurrying it along? Couldn't we extend our life and compress our morbidity? And nothing is more morbid than taking a round. That's a quick end. So we're funding it. Our tax dollars are funding it. President Trump is trying to end these wars. He's focused on ending these wars. He's focused on making things affordable. We got to get into our local communities and spread the word. We got to determine what our principles are, which is the philosophy of republicanism. And we got to move people away from whatever crazy-ass ideology they've been sucked into and get them into the search for truth. And I'm going to say this in closing. I'm trying to discover this with you. I don't have the answer for myself. I'm not so vain and self-assured to say I've got it figured out. But one thing I do have figured out, I've got to end the sin in my own life. I have to be tireless in my pursuit of truth. I have to give over to making for a good community, to provide for the common good. Let's figure out how to do that together, lest we find ourselves in an Armageddon, lest we find ourselves watching our children die right before our eyes. Let's try to avoid that. And for all the people that are suffering that in Somaliland and Somalia, in Israel, in Gaza, in Ukraine, I pray for them, because our tax dollars are funding their suffering. I pray for them because I am responsible for it. And how do I change that? By getting honest, good, everyday American citizens like you into the political process so that we can quit being led and ruled over people who have sold out to the forces that fund these mass migrations and destroy the political identities of countries in pursuit of global communism. On that note, I want to wish you a great weekend. I hope you can get your holiday thing on. Tanner, hope you get your holiday thing on.
Heck yeah.
God willing, we'll be back next week. I think we got a guest next Tuesday night.
Yep.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.